The scene is perfect. That might be a little unusual if you really think about it. Babies aren't normally born in barns. Mangers aren't oftentimes seen as the suitable substitute for a crib. But nevertheless, this scene is perfect. Forgotten is the fact that Mary and Joseph aren't married. Forgotten is the decree that forced them to take such a long journey to Bethlehem while she was so very pregnant, only to find no place for them when they arrived. The Christ child has been born, asleep in the hay, no crying he makes. All that led up to this is forgotten, and now Mary and Joseph take deep breaths and marvel at the newborn baby that is right in front of them, disturbed only by occasional visitors of singing angels, rambunctious shepherds, and gift-bearing kings. The scene is perfect. And maybe even just a little too perfect, if you ask me. You guys ever seen those perfect family photos on Pinterest? Or when you go to have your own perfect family photo taken, the ones that line the walls of the hallways, and you just envision, yes, this is what I want my Christmas card to look like. Those perfect pictures are everywhere. They're so sweet to look at, adorable even. And I think at some level, this is how we want to see Jesus coming into the world. It's nice, sweet, comforting, and not at all disruptive to our lives. These pictures make me think that everything is manageable, controllable, and will be okay. Just as we planned it, all is happy, all is perfect. But this isn't the story that we get in Christmas. Because Christmas isn't perfect. And it's not perfect because our world isn't perfect. In fact, if the world were perfect, none of this would be necessary in the first place. We wouldn't need Jesus. Everything would be well and fine without him, but we aren't. Sure, we have our moments when we put on the good face, maybe even long periods of time where everything seems to going well, at least for us, but we can't look too closely at our neighbors, our neighborhoods, or neighboring nations, lest that we are reminded of the imperfections of our world, and no matter how good a job we do of fooling ourselves, of putting on a happy face and saying all is well, God isn't fooled. Nope, God isn't fooled for one moment about how perfect we make our lives to be. Which, believe it, is good news for us. And it's the great gift that we are reminded of with the birth of Jesus that we celebrate each and every year. Because God sees the world in which Jesus is coming and being born. God knows the strife, the war, the sickness. God sees us. And I don't mean the one of that we're in one of these kind of threatening ways, like we try to tell kids, that elf on the shelf is watching and he's going to go tell Santa, so you better stay in line. God sees us. God sees us and knows our struggles, knows for those things that we don't want to name for ourselves, let alone others. God knows our hearts and our dreams, and how imperfect things really turn out. Which is why Jesus' birth never, not for one moment, ever looked like the perfect pictures that we make it out to be. And with all due respect to Away in the Manger and other Christmas carols that sing of sleeping baby Jesus, one who never cries and never poops his diaper, this isn't what the world needs. We don't need Jesus to be sleeping. We don't need the illusion that the Christ child is in our control, that we can soothe him to sleep, that his coming into the world doesn't change everything, doesn't disrupt our lives. And most people who have had children know that whatever life was like before, whatever we thought we wanted, it wasn't ever going to be that way again. Even if some of that big picture never changes, life was disrupted in ways that makes it almost impossible to comprehend now what it was before. But all of this in such wonderful and ways, life is changed. What once was never going to be the same ever again. That is God's gift to the whole world on Christmas morning. That Jesus is here, not sleeping but crying, crying out that all the world may hear. Yet the news of this causes angels to sing, shepherds to leave their flocks in the field in search of this new hope, wise men to follow stars. Hope delivered means that our world isn't the same, that it can't be the same. That whatever illusion we have been living in just won't do any longer, because the Christ child is here. God Emmanuel has arrived, hope has been delivered, and Jesus isn't going to sleep anytime soon. It means something that Jesus has come bearing the fullness of humanity. All of who we are, not just the parts that we want others to see. Jesus bears our joy and our sorrow, our hope and our pain, our life, and finally, even our death. It was never a perfect picture, because if it were, it would hardly be recognizable as human, which would miss the point of why he has come. Part of this is where I find such great hope in this season, in its dysfunction. That Jesus has a messy birth, reflecting the world in which he comes. So that we find these old sibling rivalries coming up once again at families gather. You can know that this Christ child is for you. When you become anxious in anticipation of the next credit card bill, you may know that this Christ child is for you. When you are sad and gloomy and downright depressed because this year is lacking, isn't whole or complete, isn't all that you want it to be or prayed that it would be, you know that this child is for you. Even when you don't quite understand why you have bothered to come here this afternoon, except that you have always done so, or maybe this is your first time ever coming here, desperately seeking to understand what makes Christmas so merry for so many of those around you, this child is for you. If you think that you are too broken, addicted, sinful to matter to God, guess what? This child is for you. And this child is for you not because he is adorable or cute or sleeping. And this child is not for you because you are perfect, with all of life figured out, wrapped up nicely with a bow on top. Jesus is for you because our world is in need of a little disrupting. And he is disruptive in the greatest possible way. We don't need a sleeping Jesus, even if sometimes that's what we think we want. We don't need a God who is unable or unwilling to see us and our world for how they really are. We need the God whom the Scriptures reveals, who gets past the public face that we put on for all to see, to what is inside. The things that fulfill our hearts with joy and the things that cause our hearts to ache. This is the God who was born into our world. This is hope delivered for all of us. And what truly makes this scene perfect has nothing to do with how it looks, or nothing to do with if Jesus is crying or asleep, but has everything to do with the love that God has flooded into our world. So Merry Christmas to you all. In the messiness, unperfectness of your lives, of our families, of our world. Amen.